Well, hey folks, it's your old pal King Waspinator here. Welcome back to Total Party Skills. Now, a lot of games in modern times, tabletop role-playing games, that is, seem to come out slated with a ton of supplements and accoutrements to come with them. Source books, dice, DM screens, box sets. Uh, as a marketing strategy, obviously it works, otherwise they wouldn't be doing it. But once upon a time, mainstream publishers would occasionally put out a game that was entirely self-contained, and I'm going to talk about one of them today. It's called Systems Failure. It's from Palladium Books. Came out around 2000-ish, I want to say. Written in 1999. And it takes place in an alternate timeline in the year 2009 in a world where the Y2K apocalypse basically happened, as everything, all the fears in the late 90s about what Y2K was going to be, ended up coming true, as soon as it, hit January 1st, 2000 in New Zealand, power grids start shutting down, computers shut down, planes start falling out of the sky, all that kind of stuff. But on the heels of that, there was a secret alien invasion of these interdimensional insect creatures that basically came to Earth to feed off of our power grid, and so they were in part responsible for repowering it. And while mankind's kind of melting down and destroying each other, the insects are basically able to take over the power grid, the telephone grid, and slowly take over like any sort of electronic device or vehicle that is connected into that grid, and so are able to like usurp a lot of military technology, so on and so forth. The insects aren't necessarily out to destroy all of humankind. Their thing is they have kind of like a gas attack that will pacify people so that they can be kept, contained in, like concentration camps basically. And they'll use this kind of larval creature that'll invade, the person's skull and take over the brain, basically turn them into a zombie. And the bugs basically have control of all the major technological centers and city centers within North America and supposedly beyond. The book mainly just covers, what the United States is like, with a couple little bits of hints of what Canada and Mexico are, and very little information on the rest of the world. So off the bat, on the surface, it's a bug hunt game, which, there's a genre for that. But what I find interesting is that it combines a couple other different kinds of genres, too. Somewhat related. You have, like, resistance to alien invasion kind of overtones. There's also definitely its own zombie apocalypse kind of angle. Plus, you got your original Mad Max immediate aftermath of collapse of society kind of setting. Before everything's become a bunch of weird cannibal mutant tribe kind of shit. It's realistic in that way. I also find it's kind of an interesting topical read nowadays here in the year 2021, considering that there's a definite like doomsday prepper survivalist militia kind of vibe to a lot of the game. Player characters run a large gamut of from everything from like traveling doctors and mechanics to splatterpunks to government psychics, and even these weird bioengineered people who've been spliced together between humans and DNA that they've taken from the bug creatures to be able to infiltrate and fight them back. And a lot of the adventuring is much more focused on like the basic survival aspects, and more on trying to rescue the pacified human population from the cities before they're able to be turned into bugged people. Because at that point, there's no saving someone after their brain's been eaten and replaced by a slug, obviously. And it's more of an intelligent kind of zombie vibe. They're not just like shambling, brain-devouring mutants in that function. But there is, I don't know, maybe you'd call it kind of like almost like a pod people kind of angle. But a lot of that Walking Dead kind of tone to how the world's set up, even though this way predates any of that stuff having been made. And in general, for the price point, it's not a bad read. I appreciate the fact that, in this day and age, being able to have a hold of a book that you only need the one book to run it, and there's nothing else out there for it. So it's entirely open season for what you want to do with it. It's an interesting near apocalypse kind of setting for North America. I like how they break off the states into kind of larger zones like Motown, and it's funny, but Texas is still just Texas. But it's worth checking out if you're into such things. It's something you will probably have to go to the palladiumbooks.com to find. But it's, you know, one of those rare little hidden gems that just kind of got lost in the wash. I feel that because it came out right after Y2K and it was so based on the Y2K premise, and yet we had just lived through Y2K being a big nothing burger, as some people like to say. I feel at the time it was probably kind of read as being maybe a little too cheesy. But as I say, like looking back at it in hindsight, and like a lot of the themes that are in this game, and how some of those sorts of themes have, you know, crept into, you know, a lot of science fiction and horror fiction on television. I can't remember the name of it, but there's that Steven Spielberg produced Alien Resistance show that was on like TNT or TBS several years ago. It also has a lot of similarities to this. And yeah, you know, Walking Dead's a good kind of reference point to it, and also a lot of that, you know, the original Mad Max, not the Mad Max where it's off in the desert and he doesn't need another hero and any of that kind of shit, but the very original one where there's still some semblance of civilization trying to hang on, but it's all fallen to crap. So like I said, it's worth checking out. Systems Failure by Bill Coffin and Kevin Symbieta, because he can't ever let anyone just do their own thing. At least not since CJ Corella was around. Anyway, y'all have a good one. Stay waspinated. Tell me in the comment selection how much the comment selection. See, right off the bat, there, you got a good reason to tell me that I'm a terrible, terrible YouTuber. Have a good one.